is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We welcome you to the rest of our lives here on the day after the college football season mercifully came to an end. If you're a fan of the SEC or if you're a fan of the Pac-12, if you're a fan of the Big Ten, congratulations. Thanks for coming on over from the Big Ten Network to your new home for the next 7 months, the SEC Network, at least on television, that is. Certainly a lot of conversation about what happened last night, and we'll take all callers, and I have a feeling it will be moderately entertaining depending on your favorite team. Certainly we know what happened, what is going to happen in the future. The AP poll is out, and for the first time since the 2005 season, the SEC does not, that's N-O-T, capitalized, of course, have a team in the top three. Bama managed to finish fourth. So at least the war cry across Alabama is we are fourth, or it could be we once led Ohio State, 21-6. That's the poll. Ohio State, number one, of course. Oregon is second. Why? I'm not really sure. I think I might have moved TCU to the second position. TCU is third. Bama fourth. At least Bama finished ahead of Florida State. That was the goal when the season began, and I guess that will be the goal again. What happened to Florida State? They seem to like they faded away. Michigan State is next. Baylor at 7. Georgia Tech ahead of Georgia. That hasn't happened in a while. And UCLA, a team some thought might win the national championship, ended up at number 10. Mississippi State, after a free-fall collapse in the final weeks of the season, went from 1 to 11. Arizona State, Wisconsin, Missouri. Congratulations, Gary Pinkel. Nice finish there at 14. Clemson at 15. Boise at 16. Remember when Ole Miss beat Boise? We didn't think it was much of a win. Turned out to be a pretty impressive win for the Rebels. The Rebels are at number 17. 18 is K-State. Arizona at 19. USC, watch out for them next year at number 20. 21, Utah. Auburn coming in at number 22 after an 8-5 record, a drop of 21 spots from a year ago. Marshall 23, Louisville 24, and Memphis. Man, how long has it been since Memphis finished in the top 25 in football? We know they have a pretty good basketball program in the Bluff City. So that's where we are. So many things to discuss tonight. We'll talk to Mike Bianchi, just one of many who have opined today. Has Urban Meyer passed Nick Saban? He agrees. He thinks he has. Bill Hancock, get ready for that analysis. Bill Bender from the Sporting News, who's essentially saying the Big Ten's back. The SEC is not. And your phone calls at 855-242-7285. So that is the take on what happened last night. A lot of conversation I've already heard today. Some fans unhappy with Urban Meyer's decision to go for it at the end of the game. Others refusing to give him the proper credit. That's where we are in the offseason, and the offseason certainly underway. 855-242-7285. Love to hear from you and get some various reaction. Why don't we start in Columbus, Ohio? What a surprise. Selena, thanks for the phone call. Good afternoon. You there, Selena? Hopefully we're not on day 2 of phone issues, but we'll see if we can get that worked out. One more time, we'll hit the button. Selena, are you there? Selena is not there. We've established that. Albert is there. How are you, Albert?
Greetings, Paul. How you doing, sir?
Albert, also, you're not using the same phone in Columbus, Ohio as Selena, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, thanks for the phone call.
Thank you, sir. I've basically wanted to find out essentially if does the do you and the SEC essentially believe that essentially the Big Ten essentially is on its way back at this point, or is this just an aberration in your mind?
Albert, I will only speak for myself. I have no idea what the official view of the SEC is, but I think I think they are, and I think that was indicative. Listen, I'm not going to try to rewrite history in terms of what I thought of the league 8 or 9 weeks ago.
No.
I made a big deal about Missouri losing to Indiana, but I think the Big Ten has come back with vengeance. Certainly, Ohio State is a class above, but I mean, you just heard me go through the poll. I think Michigan State acquitted itself quite well with that win on January 1st, and Wisconsin had a big win. So, and with Harbaugh, I think the Big Ten is open for business once again.
Yeah, now the question is it going to be a certain amount of time before we get to 10 wins at this point, and are able to basically state that we're just as good as Alabama is moving forward?
Well, I think the issue at Alabama is, can Alabama keep up with Ohio State right now? Because Ohio State's will be the preseason number one. There's not even a doubt about that. And Alabama will be anywhere from second to fifth. And I think the pressure's on the SEC. The pressure's not on the Big Ten right now. And I think Nick Saban has a lot of pressure on him to show that he is still the seminal figure in the sport. And a lot of people today don't think he is.
Well, they're talking about essentially, is he still relevant to Alabama football at this point? And, essentially only his performance in the future is going to say that. Well,
let me say this to you, Albert. I mean, Nick Saban won 2 national championships in a row. He won 3 out of, 4. Last year, the program finished 7th in the country. This year, they won the SEC and finished 4th. I mean, this is not a program that that is suffering through a losing streak. The problem for Saban, though, is has he does he have, what is his path to get back to a national championship, and will anything but a national championship satisfy the Alabama fan base?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking down the field. In the future at this point, I mean, are we looking at a future legacy for, a future dynasty that essentially is going to be set up here at Ohio State if essentially Urban decides to stay, doesn't fool around, with, the NFL or anything of that nature, and everybody else in the conference decides to pay attention.
Well, I think another question is, if you looked at it objectively, and a lot of people don't want to look at anything objectively when it comes to sports, who has the better chance of getting on a run right now in terms of a national championship run? Is it Saban or is it Urban Meyer? I mean, Urban Meyer has just won one, so if he wins another one, I mean, you start thinking back on this run. We all know about his first year. We know about the second year when he was 5 minutes away from another national championship appearance. I still don't think I don't think that Ohio State team would have beaten Florida State.
It would have been a knockdown, drag-out fight to find out. And of course, everybody was so nervous about this first-round situation with this championship. I mean, people dropping footballs all over the place.
No,
if we hadn't had 4 turnovers and they hadn't had one, you can imagine what the score would have been.
No, I mean, listen, let's be honest. The Alabama-Ohio State game was the de facto national championship.
Yes, I agree with you.
I'm not saying I'll never do this again, but this is about the 5th year in a row I bought into Oregon, and they have a great program at Oregon. They really do, but I don't think they're going to win a national championship in my lifetime because they just keep running up against SEC teams, Big Ten teams, and they keep disappointing in the moment, and there's a reason for that.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Albert.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
One other thing. Of course, I called in on the 2nd, and of course, I had made the comment in regards to essentially Nick Saban essentially becoming more and more involved with his ego instead of being involved with his football team. And you sort of hung up on me at that point. I was wondering, was that
hey, Albert, you have to remember that was one of the worst days of my life, okay?
I know. There's no sense in rubbing salt in old wounds. So.
Now, Albert, thank you for the call. And by the way, I'm kidding, of course. I mean, listen, Ohio State is the best team in college football right now. And anyone who doubts that did not watch the last 2 games very closely. So if you're welcome to your opinion, and that's what we do here. That just happens to be my opinion. Let's move on and talk to Kai next up in Alabama. How are you, Kai?
Hey, Pete Dan. I just wanted to say it looked like a more physical presentation. Oregon has had problems. I don't even understand their equipment. They don't even seem to wear pads, faux pads. Or is it because of the regular season has regulations and the other one doesn't? Or, I mean, let's just face it, Ohio State was physical. And I think that is what Urban Meyer is doing for the Big Ten. He's brought that physicality back.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, the physicality, speed, and quarterbacks. I mean, listen, if you had to gamble on someone to prepare a quarterback for the biggest game of the year, would you take Urban Meyer? I would.
I would too. And
I've watched Nick Saban over the years, and by the way, I mean, Saban's a defensive coach. Urban is not. But and let me make it clear, I still think the world of Nick Saban, but this is Urban Meyer's day. Nick Saban's had 4 of these days in his career. He's won 4 national championships, and don't lose sight of that. But if you want to trash Urban Meyer, and if you want to say he's a lousy coach and he's not a good coach, or he's playing with someone else's talent, you are welcome to do that. I happen to disagree with you. And by the way, my opinion is not any different today than it was a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I've said the day Urban was hired at Ohio State, I thought he was the second best coach in the country behind Saban. The question now is he the best coach? I'm probably not quite ready to make a call on that, but I'm entertaining the conversation. That's one reason we'll talk to Bianchi and some other people today. I want to know what people think. We all exaggerate or overreact in the day after. I happen to think, and I said this earlier to someone, that I thought what Urban did this year is the best coaching job I have ever seen in college football. Some people have come to me and say, well, what about what Gus Malzahn did last year? Gus Malzahn did a great job last year, but Auburn choked at the final moment of the national championship game, and that counts. Urban didn't do that this year. Yeah, he lost early, but what he did after that loss, to me, is so impressive, and that's why I think this coaching job, completing the championship run, trumps anything I have seen. By the way, this was one of Saban's best coaching jobs too, but he didn't finish it. He won the SEC, and he couldn't finish the job. And what does Nick Saban preach? Finishing. That's all he ever talks about. The fourth quarter plan, finishing games. Well, how is Nick Saban going to finish his career? That's what a lot of my colleagues are asking. Many don't think it's going to end well for Nick Saban.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Mike Bianchi from the Orlando Sentinel does a talk show down there, once wrote that Urban Meyer was a better coach than Bear Bryant. And then, of course, Urban Meyer crashed and burned. And today he wrote, of course, that Urban Meyer is better than Nick Saban. Mike Bianchi joins us. Mike, not a big surprise to read that column today. What's your reasoning?
Paul, first of all, I love the way you misquote me and put words in my mouth. I never said he was better than Bear Bryant. I said he was on pace at the time to be better than Bear Bryant. And if you figure it out mathematically, his first 5 years at Florida, he was on that pace, Paul.
Well, I do want to publicly apologize for misinterpreting one of your columns. One of the problems, Mike, that I have with your columns is that you work for such a crummy newspaper that unless you subscribe to some antiquated system of paying and reading, then you have no earthly idea half the time what you've said. So I do apologize for that. Most people, your columns are available to the whole world, but your newspaper apparently is so hard up for money that they don't quite allow that.
Paul, for pennies a day, you can go to OrlandoSentinel.com and read the finest journalism in this country, Paul.
Well, Mike, when I can read the finest newspapers in this country for free, I'll somehow be able to skip your newspaper unless I'm at Disney World or whatever you have down there in Orlando that's owned by our bosses and be subjected to the column. But anyway, regardless of all that, I'll see if I can get a loan and afford a subscription to the Orlando Sentinel.
Oh, yeah.
Why is Urban Meyer, why has he surpassed Nick Saban?
Well, I mean, obviously he hasn't surpassed him in number of national titles. That's understood. Nick Saban's won 4, Urban's won 3, but I don't think you just determine greatness on number of national championships a coach has won. I mean, it's like I pointed out in my column. If you did that, Dennis Erickson would be the greatest coach in University of Miami history because he won 2 national titles, and Howard Snellenberger and Jimmy Johnson only won 1 each. So it's not just national titles. You look at everywhere Urban Meyer's been. Paul, you're so old. What's the old quote? Did somebody once say it about Bear Bryant? He could take his and beat urine and take urine and beat his.
I think that was Bum Phillips, yes.
Okay, well, that's what Urban Meyer does. He takes over programs, and obviously he's a great recruiter. We know that. But even He takes over programs. He took over Ron Zook's program at Florida and instantly turned them into a national title team in 2 years. He took over at Utah, and in 2 years they were 12-0, and probably would have won a national title that year if they'd had a playoff system and allowed teams like Utah into the playoff. Everywhere he's been, he's won, and he's won big, and I think the whole Utah thing is what pushes Urban Meyer over Nick Saban. Nick Saban, yeah, he won national titles at LSU and Alabama, two very established programs, albeit down when Nick Saban took over. But Nick Saban never took over a nothing program like Utah and turned them into a 12-0 national title team that was running roughshod over not only the Mountain West Conference, but also plenty of Power 5 schools. Check out their schedule that season. They blew out every Power 5 school they played that year, and that was Urban Meyer running an
let me ask you, Mike, listen, Mike, thanks for the advertisement for Utah, but I'm more interested in what Urban did at Florida, what he's done at Ohio State. And really, we had Danny Sheridan on this show the other day, and he talked about the disaster that Urban left behind, as you have talked about. And so that's one reason why, and by the way, Sheridan picked Ohio State to win the game last night. Yeah. He picked Ohio State over Alabama. But still, do you factor any of that in? I know you covered it for you've covered that story for years, and the shape that Urban left Florida in.
Well, yeah, do I factor that in to how Urban Meyer is when he's at his best? No, I think when Urban Meyer is at his best, when he's focused, when he's hungry, when he's not having a mental breakdown, yeah, I think Urban Meyer is the best coach in the country. Now, at the end of his tenure at Florida, he's even said it himself, he was a broken man. That the year he lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game, anybody at Florida will tell you the guy lost like 50 pounds that year. He wasn't himself, and he was on the edge of a mental breakdown. So, no, not at the end of his tenure at Florida. No, he wasn't the greatest coach in college football then, but when he's at his best, he's better than Saban.
Well, does it – I mean, I'm not trying to get to do too much analysis here, but would you agree or disagree that Saban helped push him over the edge in 2009?
Well, yeah, he beat him in the SEC championship game, but Urban Meyer was on his way down even before that game. Paul, I'm telling you, do your research. Talk to people at Florida. They were worried about him because he'd lost so much weight, because he wasn't sleeping, because he didn't have the same focus that he had early in his tenure at Florida. He was such a perfectionist, even though they were undefeated that year going into the SEC championship game. Urban Meyer was not happy because they weren't blowing teams out the way they had the previous year, and for whatever reason, he lost it. And by the way, Nick Saban also left the Dolphins in shambles, so that counts against him.
Okay, sure. Let me switch subjects here a second, then we'll come back and wrap it up. You had a column the other day about Nick Saban and the program at Alabama. They took a young man from Georgia, Jonathan Taylor, who was essentially shown the door by the Dogs, as others have by Mark Richt. Would you address that for a moment?
Yeah, I think it's a disgrace that a guy gets kicked out of one conference school and signs with another conference school when he's facing two felony charges of domestic battery, and in this day and age, when all we've seen with domestic battery and what an issue it's been for Nick Saban and the University of Alabama to sign a kid that was kicked out of another conference school, not only should Nick Saban be ashamed of himself, but Mike Slive in the SEC should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this to happen.
Hey, Mike, hold on one second. What does Mike Slive, the commissioner of the SEC, have to do with whether Nick Saban takes a player in who is involved, and by the way, not convicted but charged with a domestic abuse. I mean, is he supposed to be Roger Goodell and legislate from a bully pulpit? Is that what you're suggesting here?
Absolutely. Isn't he the boss of the SEC? Doesn't he run the SEC?
Well, he runs the conference per se, but he does not run the University of Alabama nor the University of Georgia.
Well, how about getting on the phone then, since you run the SEC, and saying, hey, Coach Saban, I don't think it's a good idea for you to sign this guy because he's facing 2 felony counts of domestic battery. And in this day and age, when even the NFL, for as loosely as they police their players, even they wouldn't do this. I mean, Mike Slive could have had a conversation with Nick Saban, Paul.
Well, listen, I'll let Commissioner Slive answer. I don't think he needs you telling him how to run the SEC, particularly at a time like this. But let me go back to the subject of Saban versus Meyer. Right now, you're clearly saying that Urban Meyer has surpassed Nick Saban as the greatest coach in the game. What do you think happens from here? You've already made a declaration, but since you do seem to know so much more than anyone else, predict the future for us. How will this end up for both men?
Well, obviously Nick Saban's not going anywhere. He's still one of the best recruiters in college football. His program's on top every year. But Urban Meyer, when he has it going, he's also one of the top recruiters in college football. And even though the Big Ten has gotten better with Jim Harbaugh and, Michigan State is still a very good program, Urban Meyer is going to have an easier path to the national championship playoff every year. And the fact of the matter is, I think, you look at who the favorite's going to be in the next couple of years with what Urban Meyer has coming back. He still has a very young team. I think Urban Meyer is going to further the distance between himself and Nick Saban in the coming 3 or 4 years.
I mean, Saban's been the favorite pretty much every year since 2009. Do you think being the favorite has one thing to do with ending up as the champion? Just ask Jimbo Fisher about that.
No. I mean, obviously Urban Meyer is going to have a target on his back now. He's not going to be the underdog like he was this year, but Urban Meyer is Paul. When Urban Meyer has that icy look of focus and intensity in his eyes, like I saw this year, that's the same look he had early in his career at Florida. Now, will he keep that icy look of intensity? How long will it last? Urban Meyer hasn't lasted very long at any school he's ever been at, so I don't know how long it'll last. But as long as it lasts, he'll be twice the coach Saban is.
Mike Bianchi from the Orlando Sentinel. You can read his columns for a price. Mike, many thanks. Always good to visit.
See you, Paul.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
One thing about the day after, you get all the way too early polls for next year. I just saw one by my good friend Mark Schleybaugh. And Mark's always interesting. He's a compelling writer, and he's one that has been able to transform from the written word to television and online. And he did not go with Ohio State, which I thought was very interesting. He went with TCU in his column, which has just been posted on ESPN.com. He went with TCU, Ohio State second, Baylor third. Very interesting there. Fourth is USC. Fifth, the Oregon Ducks with a new quarterback. 6 is Michigan State. 7, UCLA. Have you heard Alabama yet? I haven't. 8, the Georgia Bulldogs. 9, Clemson. And 10, the Alabama Crimson Tide. You'd have to go back to 2007 to find Alabama ranked that low in the preseason. After that, he has Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Arizona, Auburn at 14. I've seen Auburn in some polls as high as 2, so you're going to get a lot of deviation on both of those points. Rich is in Atlanta. How are you, Rich?
Hi, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Hey, Paul, and also thank you for letting me cancel my subscription to the Orlando Sentinel.
Man.
Where's that guy? I mean, geez. Hey, real quick, he's crucifying. I got 2 things. He's crucifying Nick Saban and Mike Slive. And I don't know whether it was a right decision or not, but in context, I'll never forget what Jim Valvano said about Chris Washburn. You remember him?
Sure.
And what Valvano said was, everybody wants to crucify me for getting this kid. What about the 200 schools that also recruited him? And isn't that the same thing that applies with this re-recruiting of this Georgia defensive tackle?
That's a good question, and I don't have all the facts. I don't have all the facts on it, Rich. But to Alabama addressed it. They put out a public statement. They knew they would take some hits. They haven't taken as many hits as I thought they would. Cecil Hurt wrote a fairly muted column in Tuscaloosa. You heard the Atlanta papers were a little more exercise, as you know. Bianchi, did what he threw some paint at anyone he could reach. I'm not crazy about the decision. I'd like to hear more explanation from the University of Alabama than we've heard so far, something other than written statements.
But wasn't your point the most salient in that this kid's been charged, not convicted yet?
I think so,
fair?
absolutely. Yeah, you have to this isn't the NFL where, you listen, you know what happened in the NFL last year. If you were anywhere near an allegation, you were going to get run out.
Right. Okay. Real quick, the reason I called, I've listened to that fellow call about potentially expanding to the 18 playoff, and I thought that was a great idea, a great point he brought up. Could this game last night be the impetus for that in the context of, if every game's a season, Paul, what national champion in the modern era ever lost to a 6-6 team? I've been racking my brain. They lost by 2 touchdowns at home, whereas LSU, 2-loss LSU, lost twice that year, but they were to 2 8-win teams, and I think they were both in 3 overtimes. So I'm just saying, in context, couldn't this be an impetus to expand to 8 teams? Because obviously the regular season, every game doesn't matter. Fair enough?
I think so, frankly. That's a really good point, Rich. I do think it's not so much about what happened in the Virginia Tech loss, it's what happened afterwards. And had one quarterback, think about this, had Braxton Miller not been hurt, would that have happened? Probably not. Because he was hurt, I think Ohio State really got a pass, and it was really not what happened in that game. It's what Urban did with Barrett and later with Jones that was so remarkable.
Yeah, and that's fair, and they won it fair and square. But, again, Paul, you look at the margin of error in the Big Ten. They should have lost to Penn State. I think that was in overtime. There was a couple of questionable calls. Again, not to be redundant, the margin of error in the Big Ten is a lot larger than it is in the SEC. You said no one can convince you that the SEC wasn't the best conference this year? Well, I can. I have an argument for it. The bowl games are exhibitions.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Someone who has been critical of the SEC for several months and turned out to be right is our next guest, Joey Galloway, the former All-American at The Ohio State University, better known these days as one of the top ESPN college football analysts. Joey, thanks for the time, and I know you try to separate your loyalty towards your alma mater from what you do on the air, and you do, but I would imagine you feel pretty good today.
I do. I'm tired. I just put in 9 days down in Dallas, but it's been great. A great win, and not just for Ohio State, but for the Big Ten and for college football. The way everything played out, I think the whole thing was very successful.
It's interesting, Joey. The odds makers just simply reflect what the betting public is doing, but the underdog role has seemingly fit Urban Meyer well. What do you think we all missed, or not all of us, but certainly a lot of us missed in seeing this train coming down the track the last few weeks?
I think it's matchups. And very early, as soon as the college football playoff bracket came out with the 4 teams, the first thing I said was, if Ohio State could pick the matchup they wanted, I thought they would want Alabama, just because of the matchup and the style. And not to say it'd be an easy win, but as far as what they do, it was the game that I thought they would want. They win that one, and then, and you could understand Ohio State being an underdog to Alabama in the semifinal. The one that baffled me was, being an underdog to Oregon. And Oregon is a terrific football team, and one of the best quarterbacks in college football, Heisman Trophy winner, of course. But I thought the matchup was more of a mismatch in Ohio State's favor than anything that they had seen in the past couple of weeks. Because when you have a style that Oregon has, it is, and I know this bothers them to be called a finesse team, but that's what they are. And when you have a finesse team with a finesse defense that is bend but don't break, it's going to get tough on you if your offense does a couple 3 and out. All of a sudden, your defense gets real tired real fast when you're facing a physical team that can run the ball.
Just in terms of where Ohio State goes from here, I mean, we all know the same information, and Urban has said it repeatedly. He thought next year would be the year. Does anything really change? And I know there are some pretty big question marks, but how would you assess Ohio State moving forward, and then we'll broaden the scope a little bit to the rest of the world?
Ohio State is sitting in a really good spot. Now there's going to be a lot of pressure. And we've seen a Florida State deal with some of that pressure in their second year to try to defend their title. They went undefeated in the regular season, but it wasn't pretty at all. The biggest question for Ohio State moving forward will be who's going to be quarterback, and not just who's going to start, but who will still be here come next season. When you have 3 guys that have played the way that these 3 guys have played, then it is safe to assume that you will not have all 3 guys starting next season.
Let's broaden it a little bit. And Joey, to your credit, I mean, you were not always kind to Alabama. You saw some things as far back as we can go that you didn't like. Forgetting what happened, we've already hashed out 2 weeks ago. But moving forward, we know about recruiting. We know who Saban is. But what do you see in your crystal ball for this program over the next year or two?
It would be always tough to not have Alabama near the top simply because of what you mentioned. Their recruiting is always good. Every time you turn on these high school all-star games and kids have 2 hats sitting at the table to choose from, Alabama always seems to be one of those 2 hats. So I expect Alabama to be right in the thick of things. They will lose Amari Cooper, of course, at wide receiver. But from where, and again, and I've said this before, from where Blake Sims and where the offense started from the spring and to where they finished this season, I think that was just a terrific coaching job, gained as much as anybody. So you expect them to step forward from there with Lane Kiffin and the job he did. You expect them to step forward from there. And I don't know that you can just simply replace a player like Amari Cooper, but Alabama is never at a shortage of athletes, and I'd expect them to be better on the back end in their defense also, which was another place that Alabama was hurting.
Of the other 13 schools, forgetting division affiliation, which one do you think poses the greatest threat in 2015 to Alabama in the SEC?
I would expect, and again, this is simply because I think that Gus Malzahn is a heck of a coach. I would expect Auburn to be pretty good, just because of the run they've had the past couple of years. And they bring in Will Muschamp as defensive coordinator, which immediately gives him some credibility. So I would expect Auburn to be tough. It'll be interesting to me to see just where the Mississippi schools go from here after a pretty good season where they make a splash, and maybe not finish where they would hope to finish. But that'll be interesting to me. And I really want to see where Arkansas goes. I mean, they were a team that couldn't get an SEC win there under Brett Bielema for a while. And then They get a couple at the end of the season, then it becomes interesting, then we start paying attention. With their run game, their running style, which is a different kind of style than most SEC teams see on a week-to-week basis, I'm looking forward to see what Arkansas turns into.
Finally, Joey, the rest of the country, TCU, Baylor, they're both projected to be very high. Certainly SC is expected to come on. Just looking beyond what we've already talked about with Ohio State, with the SEC, couple of teams that you think will be vying next year. Here we go again for the 14 playoff.
I don't know if there's anybody that is an actual, just a college football fan that is not looking forward to seeing what TCU is going to do next season. I mean, if you in the conversation, you know how I felt. I was very clear on how I felt about what happened to TCU in the final 5 days of the playoff rankings. I thought they deserved to be in. They earned their way in. They don't get in. And then the question becomes, whoa, how will they rebound for the bowl game? And they did nothing but come out and go at it. I mean, they look like, if you watch TCU play, you'd think, boy, they look as good as anybody in the country. So that's a team that for sure I'm looking forward to see where they go in this next season.
Joey, we'll let you off the hook at that. You sound like you need some rest. You deserve it. Great job out in Dallas and all year long. We've enjoyed our conversations immensely.
Thank you, and I expect to be on next season. Don't let the finish of this season and what happened to Alabama, Ohio State, don't let that stop you from bringing me on next year.
Well, we have to go into our bosses. There's a limit on outsiders. Cannell has been deep six, as you know, and you're on the chopping block. But I'll see if I can flex a little muscle.
I appreciate that.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We were talking to, I think it was Kevin in Muscle Shoals. Kevin, are you back? You were trying to make a case why Urban Meyer is inferior to Nick Saban, right?
Right. I just don't understand that.
Okay. And I asked you, you said Urban Meyer, Nick Saban was 10 times better. And I'm just asking you, of all the comparisons you could draw, which one is your strongest argument for Urban Meyer to be inferior by a scale of 10 to Nick Saban?
Let's see. I want to say about a 6.
Well, no, that's not, I wasn't. I mean, are we talking about? I mean, because you know Urban Meyer has a better overall record. You know Urban Meyer is 2-1 against Saban in playoff games. You know Urban Meyer has 3 national championships.
Well, we got to look
4.
we got to look at Alabama's numbers. See, we're not looking at Alabama's numbers on how many national championships Alabama's got.
No, we're not talking about. We're talking about Nick Saban. Hold on. Nick Saban has won 3 national championships at Alabama, 1 at LSU. Urban, 2 at Florida, 1 at Ohio State. That's what we're comparing right now. We're not comparing Alabama to anyone. We're comparing Nick Saban to Urban Meyer.
Right.
So if I ask you one more time, Kevin, your most compelling argument that Nick Saban is 10 times better than Urban Meyer is what?
Well, recruiting for one. He's a 10 times better recruiter than Urban Meyer is. We got a 5-star prospect in Kentucky right now. He's already signed to go to Alabama.
And what is he going to do for Alabama that the last 7 years of 5-stars haven't already done?
Well, he's going to be probably another Mark Ingram.
Okay. So
I've been
the running backs in Alabama.
I've been to 4 A-Day games, and I know by looking at Alabama what they got.
Okay, so you're saying that Henry and Yeldon.
Yeldon's gone.
Yeah, well, I know that.
I mean, he's gone.
You would agree Alabama's had a pretty good stable of running backs over the years, wouldn't you?
Pretty good stable running backs and receivers.
Yeah. What about quarterback, though?
I think your next quarterback, and people can argue about this, but he just might put Croker in there, and then he might put that Morris in there. Because that Morris...
Who was that again?
Morris.
Morrison, yeah.
Now,
sure.
he can
who's the
get
other
on
guy?
his knees and throw 70 yards.
And who's the other guy you're talking about?
Croker.
Is he the one that transferred from Florida State, Croker?
That's right.
Yeah, Jake Croker.
Uh-huh. And I mean, there's no reason why, Saban can't put him in there. I mean, the boy's got the experience.
Yeah.
The boy can run.
So you're Morrison and Croker. I guess you're leaving out Bateman. You're leaving out Barnett, the quarterback that's coming in that Lane Kiffin helped to sign. These are all better than what Ohio State has right now that Urban Meyer either inherited or.
I think they're better than that third-string quarterback. Yeah.
Cardell Jones, right?
Yeah, I really do.
Okay, you think Bateman, Croker are better than Cardell Jones? You're in Muscle Shoals, right?
I'm in Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
Yeah, been there many times. Great place. The question to you: do you get cable in Muscle Shoals, Alabama?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you saw the game last night.
Yeah, I seen, and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, the way they played. I think if Alabama would have had their head on straight, they'd have run all over them. I mean, I really do. I think Alabama could have beat Ohio State.
Kevin,
ain't no doubt in my mind.
You are aware, are you not, that on the night of January 1st in the Louisiana Superdome on Poydras Avenue in New Orleans, Alabama met Ohio State?
Yeah, and we could have beat them.
Yeah.
We should have beat them. Ain't no doubt in my mind that we should have beat them.
Okay.
But, I mean,
what happened?
Here we are dealing with numbers
You're aware
again.
of Ezekiel Knight, are you not?
Sir?
You've heard of Ezekiel Knight, have you not?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I really haven't.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I've heard
he's
actually
has got guys at USC coming out here.
So you think? So you don't know Ezekiel Knight? Do you think he could have played for Saban?
I don't know that Ezekiel Knight. No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well,
I never heard of him.
You said you saw the Alabama-Ohio State game.
Yeah.
Do you remember the running back who left tire tracks on the defensive line of Alabama?
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about now.
The one that like ran over Alabama's defense for about, what, an 80-yard?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
That is Ezekiel Knight.
Okay.
You saw the game last night, did you not?
Yeah, I seen little bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, he's the one that ran over the Oregon defense and left them on the field like.
Well, Oregon didn't press me none. I mean, really, they shouldn't have been there. To be honest with you, I mean, they didn't show me nothing. I think Alabama could have beat Oregon.
Yeah, I do too. By the way, we agree on that.
I mean, really.
Yeah, really. I'll tell you what. Listen, Kevin, you're a good man.
Saban he's got a lot of people signed up. I know he's got two in California. He's got one quarterback, and Oklahoma's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Alabama has got so much talent right now. It's pathetic.
So you would not agree, would you not, with Colin Cowherd, who said Urban Meyer has surpassed Saban? You wouldn't agree that no.
No.
Okay.
No way.
Okay.
No, Saban's a 10 times better coach than Urban Meyer will ever be, and he's coming close to me, I don't know about anybody else, but he's coming close to Bear Bryant.
Okay.
I really do.
And Urban just doesn't mean anything, doesn't do anything for you, right?
Well, I mean, Florida kicked him out.
Florida kicked him out?
beat him on his butt, so he had to go to Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just ain't, he just ain't all there to me. He's when he had his heart attack, he should have just retired.
Well, Alabama fans probably agree with you, or at least wish you had been correct. I tell you what, Kevin, you've been fair. I asked your opinion.
I'm an Alabama fan. It's in my blood. I got tattoos all over me. Alabama Roll Tide all the way for me. But I know what Alabama's got for the next 6 years.
So let me ask you, and final question, Kevin. Over the next 6 years, the big battle between Urban Meyer and Nick Saban, how many titles do you think Saban will win, and how many titles do you think Urban Meyer will win?
I think Urban Meyer might win one out of the 6, and then Saban's going to win the next 5 if he's lucky.
So
Urban Meyer's lucky.
Saban wins 5, or
yeah.
Urban wins 1 if he's lucky, right? Okay. Hey.
If he's lucky.
If he's lucky.
If he's lucky.
If he's lucky. Okay.
Which, I mean, like y'all said, half them players on Ohio State, they might not even be there next year.
Yeah, I do know.
But that's just what I think. I mean, he's a top recruiter. He's got 5-star prospects coming up in here, and it's everybody. I don't know. Everybody thinks that Alabama ain't gonna be nothing for a while. Well, they ain't seen Alabama like I have, and by going to the A-Day games, I learn a lot just by sitting there.
Okay, final question. So Kevin, you've been to 4 straight A-Day games. For those who don't know, that's the Alabama spring game, right?
That's right.
Have you been to any other?
You watch it, and you learn them guys. You learn what they got. You know what they're going to do. I mean, I know what they're going to do already, and they ain't even played this year.
Now, Kevin, other than the spring game the last 4 years, and I was fortunate enough to be there last year, have you been to any other Alabama games?
I've been to went to Tennessee game.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to a Tennessee game, and I've been to let's see, some rinky-dink school up north. But let's see, I've been to Florida.
Okay, well, yeah, you've seen mainly though you've seen those A-Day games, right?
Yeah, I go to the A-Day game. That's where you learn it all.
Oh yeah.
You learn, you watch, and you see what they got.
Yeah.
And then for the first time they play, in August or whatever, September, I mean, I know within 5 minutes what they're going to do.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, I have 1,000 other questions, but I won't ask them because we're over our time limit.
Okay.
Kevin, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Finebaum. You have a great day and a roll tide.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Bill Bender is with the Sporting News, and he has had some strong comments about the SEC and the Big Ten in a piece today. Bill, thanks for the time, and anxious to get your take on what happened last night and what impact it's had on this little conversation we seem to be enjoying between the Big Ten and the SEC.
Well, I don't think your last caller is going to like what I have to say. I mean, Urban Meyer, he's arrived in Columbus. Last night wasn't a fluke. The Alabama game wasn't a fluke. I mean, you look at what they did in those 2 games. 296 yards last night on the ground, 281 yards against Alabama. That's the formula the SEC used to win all those national championships during the BCS era, but the BCS era is over. Urban Meyer made a statement. And I think going into next year and the next several years, Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, 1A, 1B, doesn't matter. those two are going to continue to hoard national championships.
Yeah, and I think that's really the best way of putting it. And by the way, anyone other than Kevin from Muscle Shoals, Alabama, is probably going to agree. You can quibble four national titles versus 3, but there's not a lot of margin between those, particularly considering that Urban just beat Saban and is on top of the college football world. I know you agree with that because you've written it, but just in terms of what this means beyond Saban, toward the SEC as a whole, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the SEC is still not behind the Big Ten. I didn't try to say that in my article at all. I mean, they've still got plenty of national championship contenders going into next year. I know you guys are going to talk a lot about Georgia. Arkansas will be a sleeper. Alabama, Auburn, they're all there. But the Big Ten, as far behind as they were 7 years ago, I think this bowl season, that national championship, the rise of Michigan State, and bringing in that khaki pants man Jim Harbaugh into Michigan, the Big Ten made a lot of statement, and they closed the gap a little bit. I don't think that can be argued.
Bill, if you had to, I mean, I know I'm not going to try to steal the lines from your piece. I'll let you do that since they are yours. But in points of history and points of comparison, where are we and what does this mean and what would you compare it to?
Well, you can steal all the lines in there you want. I don't mind. But, no, I just think the way the Big Ten plays with that national championship, the way Wisconsin beat Auburn, I just think the thing is, over the last several years, you've had SEC fans walking around saying Kentucky could win the Big Ten or Ohio State couldn't beat the fourth-place team in the Big SEC West. Both of those things aren't true. I always rolled my eyes when I heard those types of things. But I think what this creates is these are the two conferences that really hate each other. I think SEC fans love beating up on the Big Ten, and the Big Ten was itching to prove that this SEC bias notion, all these national championships, they wanted somebody to step up, take a swing, go beat Alabama. And I'll tell you what, in Columbus, they're probably more excited about beating Alabama than they are beating Oregon. I mean, I was up there the day after the game, and my old college roommate was more excited about that than I think he was last night. That's just the way it is in Columbus, and I think it's great for college football.
So what does it really mean?
What does it mean? I mean, it means the Big Ten won a national championship, and they.
Well, no, I mean, Bill, listen, Bill, we know that. We all watched on television. What does it really mean? Because the Big Ten has won 1, and in the interim, the SEC has won 7.
Well, but the BCS era is over. I mean,
Bill, listen, I am a college graduate. I know that. I'm trying to get some deeper meaning. You are a writer, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it means that the Big Ten is going to compete with the SEC for national titles, and Ohio State is at the front of that line.
You're painting this broad picture like the end, like this is the final days of the Roman Empire. I'm just trying to get some context. One victory is very significant. I buy that, and I think most of the audience would buy that, but I'm trying to get some context on what it really means other than for the first time in, 10 or 11 years, the Big Ten has been on a national stage and done something other than throw up all over itself.
Well, yeah, I mean, they made a statement last night, though. I think they made a statement against Alabama as well. I mean, and I think the movement of bringing in Jim Harbaugh, like I said, I think Michigan State's the most underrated program in the country. I mean, we spent all season talking about Ole Miss and Mississippi State. I put Michigan State up against both of those teams. They've won 11 games for the last 5 years, and they just beat Baylor and finished in the top 5. So I think aside from – I know the SEC West is deep, but I think the Big Ten East with Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, free and clear of all those sanctions, I think that's a division, if we play the long game, play it out 5 or 6 years from now, that the SEC West and the Big Ten East could be about even.
Okay. And, I mean, listen, projecting is difficult from the beginning of the season to the end, but let's talk about the SEC. I mean, obviously, the SEC is what it is, but what do you see in the SEC that, if anything, I should say, that concerns you?
The quarterback play, for starters. I mean, Cardale Jones is a third-string quarterback, and I think he could start at half of the schools in the SEC. You telling me LSU wouldn't take him tomorrow? I mean, that kid, or they're recruiting Braxton Miller, any one of those guys. I look at Dak Prescott at Mississippi State. I think he's outstanding. But outside of that, I mean, you need a quarterback to win a national championship in college, and you might need 2 if you got that offense to where guys are going to run all the time. So. And even if you have a Heisman quarterback, he might have a decent night like Mariota did last night, and you still won't win it. But I mean, other than that, yeah. I mean, the SEC is going to have a bunch of recruiting classes. Alabama's obviously going to load up again. But I think the Big Ten, Ohio State, with these other teams realizing they have to compete with Ohio State, I think it's going to lead to a better all-around Big Ten conference.
And I mean, you would say that Michigan hasn't been thinking ahead to compete with Ohio State for the last 8 or 10 years? I mean, they just woke up and realized they had to start competing with Ohio State. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, the Harbaugh hire means that they're serious now. I mean, Brady Hoke, did he scare anybody?
Do you think the Rodriguez hire was considered a joke on the day it was made, or the Brady Hoke hire was considered a step backwards? I mean, these were both well-respected coaches. Rodriguez had come within a couple of minutes of playing for a national championship. Hoke was heralded as a great coach returning to Ann Arbor. So I mean, I'm just trying to get some context as if Michigan. I mean, obviously Michigan changed its approach, but I don't remember on the day of either hire of anyone laughing at those two hires.
Well, but there was apprehension. There's no apprehension with Jim Harbaugh. He's the prodigal son of that program. Mm-hmm. Everybody's in. Everybody's together. That's a guy they've wanted. Hey, he coached in a Super Bowl, too. So it's not going to happen overnight, but it didn't happen overnight in Tuscaloosa either. I mean, Nick Saban went 7-6. So I think –
well, I mean, Bill, come on, listen. I mean, we're not – I mean – anyway, I'm not going to argue with you over things that you clearly don't know. I mean, he went 7-6 because he inherited a program from Mike Shula, but from the day he got there, he was building toward a championship, and anyone with a working brain knew that Saban would win one eventually.
And Harbaugh's inheriting a mess next year too. I mean, look at that.
But there is a big difference between Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh, and I bet you can guess what it is. Saban had won a national championship. He had won 2 SEC championships at LSU. Harbaugh has gotten to a Super Bowl, but unless I'm wrong, he doesn't have too many championship rings on either one of his hands.
You're right, but he's won everywhere. I mean, what was Stanford before Jim Harbaugh came there?
No, listen, I'm a huge Jim Harbaugh fan, but I'm just not sure but Stanford had decent programs in the past. Willingham wasn't too bad there. Bill Walsh, one of the greatest coaches in history, in more the NFL than college, had also established a decent program there. So, Dennis Green. I mean, Stanford had been on the map. They just couldn't stay on the map.
Right, and I think Michigan will get back on the map with Jim Harbaugh after a year or two, where they have to get their feet under them. And same thing with James Franklin at Penn State. I mean, they were under NCAA sanction. So I like the direction that's going. I mean, I want to see what Wisconsin's going to do with their new coach, and the same with Nebraska. I mean, I wasn't as high on those hires as probably their fan bases weren't either, but I just think that there's room for the Big Ten to improve, and it's a good thing, Paul. I mean, it's a good thing if we get great SEC versus Big Ten matchups, because that's what fans in both regions want.
No doubt. Bill Bender from the Sporting News, nice enough to join us here this afternoon. Many thanks, Bill. Talk soon.
Hey, I appreciate it, Paul. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN radio app.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.